Okay, we're back on part 3, and just a few oils that I've done in the same subject matter. This is a triptych with the striped cloth in pairs, and a couple of small pieces. I believe those are 8 by 8, and then this one, it's a very unusual size. I believe it's 12 tall by 24 wide. And so we won't dwell on that long. I know this is a pastel demo. So let's get started on the last section. Okay, now as we start on the last section of this demo, I would like to focus on the small things that will bring the painting to life. And even though there are a lot of things that I would like to change now at this stage, I feel like just for time's sake, I need to move on to the little things that will make this image pop. So, several things that I would like to do. I have a little bit of problem solving to do. There are some things that bother me that I will probably change while we're working. This area right here, you can probably see there's a little bit of a highlight on the back side of that. But what it's doing is too intense, and it's causing that to come forward and for my lemon to not have the round appearance like it should have. So this is something that I want to gray down a little bit. I can still show it as a bit of a highlight, but just not quite as much of a highlight and not so intense. I will put some of the things in the bowl to make it look like it's shiny. Same with the plate. I'm going to warm this area up back here with some of the colors that are to pick up some of the colors that are in the lemons, and add highlights to the lemons. So these are the things that we're going to finish up, and I'm going to start with this one first because this is bothering me really, really bad. And I'm going to see if I can't knock some of that down. I need something that I need a little bit more of a gradual shift. So I might add just a little bit of this orange right in here just for that transition. Dark orange, because the transition is what gives you that rounded shape. The same with as it comes forward here. Now I will be adding its highlight, but I want that shape to transition out like it's a rounded form. That bright yellow, but it still has a darkness to it, and I'm adding a little bit of that there. And I think what I'll do is put a little bit of orange on this side because I want it to show like it's turning the corner, it's rounding out. So anyway, these are some things that I can play with, but I have defined, now just rubbing that out helps a little bit. And I think what I'm also going to do is add a little color here, a little lighter color that shows that it's still getting a little light off of the top. Anyway, this is just how I need to work back and forth in areas that need help, and I don't feel like I'm there yet. So it's all part of problem solving when you're painting, drawing. Take a look at it and see what needs to be done in those areas. And I can't dwell on that for a long time. I think what I'm going to do is to use an earth tone. I have a few of them pulled out here, and they're not necessarily intense. They're a little more muted, and I'm just showing that highlight a little bit with that earth tone now. I'll have to get away from it for a little while. And I always say that when I'm finished with a pastel or any artwork, I have to let it simmer for a little while, because get away from it, and then when I come back with fresh eyes in a couple of days, a lot of times those things that I've missed that look wrong will become evident. Here's another little trick that I like to do. This is my rear view mirror. If something's not looking right, look at it in a mirror, and a lot of times those things that are wrong will pop out. So, okay, on to the finishing touches. I'm going to start with adding a little bit of these warm tones into this fabric. I just want to warm this up a little bit and tie it into what we have going on with the lemons without getting too detailed and causing it to be the star of the show. Let's see. So I'm looking for an orangey color that's light in value, preferably something I've already used. This is actually an earth tone, and I'll just put a little of that just to warm it up. And I like to layer things. These are actually, I have a blue, and then this is a little bit of an orangey gold ochre type color. I like to layer those types of colors together. And there again, this may not be how I leave it, but we're just going to try to get it to the point that it looks somewhat finished, pretty finished before the end of this demo. Highlights on the lemons. I really want to put some of those in. I'm going to try this nice, light, very soft yellow. And lemons, they don't have they have a softness to them, so I'm just stippling a little of this on, and I'm rubbing it to soften that highlight a little bit, because it's not a hard surface like something like the plate. And the plate, to show the highlights, you'll want a little bit more of a straighter line, a harder edge, more contrast, because it's a hard surface. And that's part of how you show texture. Just a tiny little bit of highlight on this, not a lot. What more of the center of interest is in here. There are a few little glisteny pieces on this, and I don't want it to be a real high highlight, because we don't want to overdo that. Just a couple. And this is not the real center of interest, but I could say it's a supporting actor. So I'm putting, it has a little bit of a highlight, but you don't want it, I don't want it to be as high of a highlight as this. As our star, which is this area. Okay, another little reflected light piece coming in here because it's coming off of a plate. Hopefully that's not too intense. It's gonna throw off your sense of roundness on the lemon. We want it to look like it's going back and going around. So not only am I'm careful about putting it in, but I'm smudging it a little bit. So I don't want it to be too high in contrast. All right, so around the edge of the bowl, we have some reflection of the lemons in here. And with that, I see a lot of, I'm going to use an earth tone in here. We see a lot of yellows and oranges. There again, we don't want it to be real intense. We don't want it to take over from the star of the show, which are the lemons. And this is part of what makes the bowl give it its three-dimensional effect, gives it the shiny effect, shows you that it has a reflective finish on it. Oh, let's see here. I think I'm going to go with a light blue. Just a little bit of an intense reflection there. It's another area of where the light is hitting, and it hits there and moves around the lip of the bowl. And there again, I'm using my finger as a pivot like a compass, trying to get that roundness in there. And I think there's probably not quite enough. I see a little area I want to add a little bit of orange. It's like that reflected light. And there, always have to be mindful that I'm not losing my roundness, the right type of ellipse going on. A little bit of light hitting the top edge of that. Moving around, I mean, you can get as detailed as you want to on this. I'm going to try not to overdo it with the details. And here is even though this is dark in value, there's still little things being reflected into it. There's a nice little dark edge right in here. Hopefully that's not too intense. I'm going to use this other blue. You can see how the bowl is starting to look like. It has all these reflections. And there's just a nice little highlight that's picking up right there. Also, there's a little bit going on in the inside. I'm going to show a little bit of that. A lot of it is oranges and those kinds of shades coming off of the lemons. A little bit down here. Just throw a little bit in there. A little bit reflected up into the bottom of the bowl off of the plate. That may be a little bit much. It's a little bit of a turquoise coming up in there. Just enough to show it. And what I want to do is add this light color of how the light's really coming in here and hitting this. That may be a little intense. Let's try this. there's the edges that we started with, these little ridges, I guess is what they are in the bowl, or in the plate. Part of that very distinct fiesta look. I got my fiesta from the Fiesta Factory in Ohio, and it's like a place where they have the seconds, and or you can buy some that are not seconds, but I was just so excited to go in there, look for some things. We don't want that bright highlight running into that dark, that shadow. That needs to stay separate. You stay on your side over there. And this is a little softer back in here, not quite as bright. And there's just a few little, just indicate a few things that are on the inside of that. Actually, that's a very warm, that highlight is very warm in there, and so if when I keep working on this, I may add a little bit of warmth into these highlights along the edge of the plate. Plate is actually darker value than this, and so I need to finish this background section here, and we wanted to warm that up. So warm versus cool, light versus darker, and that makes that edge of that plate show up without it being too much contrast. Gives it some direction back there. And I'm going to add a little contrast here. But it's not such an intense color that it's going to take over as the star of the show. So, speaking of reflections, a lot of these reflections coming in here, there's a little bit here, but I'm going to layer over some of these with a little bit of yellow because it's reflecting a lot of that. So I don't want it to be as intense, so there again I'm going to use more of an earth tone, and I see a little reflection in here that's a little bit like from lemons. This as well. Warms and cools. what makes painting interesting and fun. Warms and cools. Okay, now I kind of messed up on this shadow. It's actually coming up, and I destroyed that. So let's put that back in there. So, as this highlight comes around here, it really basically stops at the shadow, or if it's in the shadow, it's a darker shade. Let's see. There's another little area of a highlight. It's the bottom of the bowl, or the plate rather. You don't want it to be too bright. You just want to show that that's the bottom and it's reflecting a little light, but you don't want it to take over. You don't want it to come forward. You know, I'm glad some of this little warmth is showing through because it carries the color of the lemons. These little lines in here aren't perfect, and this is something I'll go back and work on, but for the sake of your time, sometimes that can get kind of boring watching somebody try to do that. So I want to just try to keep it to the interesting stuff right now. Here, I really want that to blend that out so that it's not as harsh of an edge. Sometimes, since it's it's kind of a reddish color underneath, if I want that to show more like it's the underneath color, and plus orange is the complement to blue, I will go in and relieve those edges from their sharpness with the complementary color. Same up here. You kind of see some of that carrying through. But there again, that is something that I work on and straighten up a little bit as I go. It looks like we are in 20 minutes into it, so if you guys want to continue to hang with me, we'll just keep working on this a little bit. Let's see. A little bit of highlight here. I'm not really trying to introduce a whole lot more colors into because I feel like I've got my palette pulled out, and so I'm just going to try to find something that I think is going to work. I don't want it to come forward, so I'm going to use a light violet and just a little white edge on that, and I wanted to show that. That a little darker because I want it to go back in space and recede. And so I see a lot of warmth in those those lines coming around. And so I'm not sure how much of that I really want to introduce. So I don't want it to take over. But I'm thinking I'm going to put a little bit more in. Especially the closer they get to the lemons. And it doesn't necessarily have to be all the way around. Just here's another thing that I always do, and I meant to mention this up front, but I almost always paint standing up. And the reason why is because it's really best to paint from your arm. And I know sometimes I'm getting up here a little close sometimes I have to balance on my finger. But if you're sitting down and you're really working up here and you're just painting from your wrist, it can be really wonky and you can't see it. So it's good to step back from your painting, back and forth, back and forth. You'll be surprised at what shows up when you move back from it. And it's fatiguing, yeah, it is. I've got bad knees, believe me. I don't really like, you know, after a full day of painting, I'm exhausted. But it's a good exhausted. Somebody just walked by my window. That's my husband. So, it's a good feeling. It's a good tired. And you're happier with your work that way. And I highly recommend it. If you've not painted standing up, I would give it a try. And I know sometimes you have to sit down and work on detail stuff. You have to get close every now and then, like this, and you have. But as soon as you put that in, it's better to get back, see what's going on, because it's so hard to see when you're up on it. It's like you can't see the forest because you're in the trees. All right. And so I'm going to emphasize this little warmth area just a little bit more because I just want that difference back there. This isn't a real light value. There again, it's an earth tone. I can't remember, I don't really know the name of the color, but it's an earth tone. It's a warm orangey earth tone. Since I don't have the labels and I don't have my pastels in the order that they used to be in, I can't tell you. I don't know what I'm using. I just, you know, you just have to think. You have to think in terms of color and not so much color name. And that all has to do with the color wheel. Work that color wheel. All right, so I'm going to add just a little bit of dark, really a dark in there. And I tell you, my colors that I have are really dark. It used to be so hard to get dark pastels, but the Terry Ludwig pastels are so good for getting a good dark color in there. And I just want that bowl to go way down. I want some dimension in that. And just a little bit more in here. There's another little line that runs around. I mean, you've got those Fiesta lines, and you can indicate a couple of those. You just don't want that. You don't want now that's a little high in value. It's not good. So I'm going to cover that up. And if it's not the right value, leave it out. if you can't find the right value, but you don't want that to jump forward if it doesn't have any business in that shadow. If it's on the higher end of the value scale and it's a shadow, it doesn't belong in there. It will fool your eye every time and make it look like it's not doing what you want it to do. So just a little bit there. Let's see. I'm going to run around this light edge just a little bit more this way. All right, so as I look at it, I'm going to be looking for, as I'm looking to finish it out, I'm probably going to let it set for a couple of days, come back to it, and reevaluate my values, you know, my light and dark patterns. You know, in here you have you have some orange reflected into that because it's lemons, and it's orange, red, you know, yellow. Really a dark yellow looks kind of orange, and or green. It looks kind of greenish. So I may throw a little bit more color in those, but I don't want to get it too light. In fact, I think I'm going to put a little bit darker color in there right now, because it just needs that. To give it depth. It's basically the same colors I've been using. This is a turquoise that has just a little bit more warmth to it. So right up close here. When the shadows get close to the object, they get darker, and as they go back, they get lighter. So I may work on those a little bit, and we'll see what happens after a couple of days. And I think I'm about finished up for the day. And so I'll just do another video of up close of it, rather than moving the camera. So I want to thank you for watching. If you've hung with me through this whole thing, you probably deserve a medal. So I really thank you for watching. I hope it's been educational, and you've learned something from me that maybe that I've talked about. I want to thank the Pastel Society of Oklahoma for inviting me to do this demo and helping me with the idea of doing a demo, and for allowing me to be able to start my own YouTube channel with this video. And also thank you to Greg Stone, who is editing all this together. I hope that I can bring some more videos on YouTube. We'll see how that goes. This is all new for me, and it's just very different. But I hope that that this can encourage you to start something new, to try something you've never tried before, and hope that it helps you to find your creative vision. So for now, happy creating. Hope to see you soon. Stay healthy. Bye-bye.